about Passeggiata.
Say that again.
Passeggiata.
That's a nice word. All right.
So this is one of our, I always want to say it's our favorite. They're all our favorite. This is one of our favorite ones. It's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah,
because it's
sure.
just kind of like simple and you don't need to worry too much about it. You're drinking 9. All right. So I had a great question yesterday, which was, what is the oldest one that we should drink for the greatest comparison? And I was kind of stumped for a long time because I never think about Passeggiata as aging. We always think about it as like, just drink it and it's kind of fun and don't worry too much about it. But it did make me think we should go back through the archives and pull some of the old ones out. So we are going to do that. The first, I'm going to answer the question about what's in this blend. I can tell you what's in this blend. The Passeggiata blends are always the weirdest blends you can imagine.
2019.
The 2019. Okay, yeah, right. So I guess that's the first one. You want to taste the 19 first? We'll taste the 19 with you first. There it is. Oh, I have to do this, and then you can see it better, I think. Okay. There's the 2019 Passeggiata. So lots of people should have that since it was just let out. The blend is 28% Syrah, 21% Cabernet Sauvignon, 15% Cabernet Franc, 15% Merlot, 15% Petit Verdot, and about 6% of all of the whites blended together. And those percentages, honestly, are a little bit approximate. Passeggiata, and the reason we do not put the blend on Passeggiata is not just because we are too lazy to calculate it, because it's very complicated. It is partly because it's this mix of grapes that when I read that mix of grapes, these like big, strong, bold grapes, you're expecting like a big kind of cab wine or a big Syrah. I feel like it would be misleading if you read this blend. You're not going to get the wine you expect. So it is really the reason that the back label, we don't ever put the blend on it, because if you don't already know what Passeggiata is and you read that blend, you're going to be like, what? This just seems really weird. So anyway, that is kind of why we don't ever tell you what the blend is. So it's not a secret. Sometimes we don't remember. I mean, I always have notes, but I did try to look one up the other day and I was like, oh, my notes are not very clear, so I'm not sure what's in it. All right, so how do we make Passeggiata in the first place? Maybe we should start with that. Or maybe we should start about the one we're tasting. Should we taste it?
Let's taste it.
Let's taste it so people feel like they can drink their wine, because I know nobody would drink their wine before we said it was okay. Right?
All right, go.
So let's see here.
All right, well, Sarah's tasting that. Let's talk. Let's do them simultaneously. How's that? On how we make Passeggiata.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So there is a technique in the wine world that the French call sangre, the Spanish call sangre, and it translates to bleed. And so with a red wine, when we pick the red grapes, we de-stem them. We sometimes crush them a little bit to open up the skins a little bit, and then we put them in these tanks. The whole skin, the juice, everything. The juice of a red grape is clear. So all of the color and all of the tannin, actually everything that makes a red wine taste like a red wine is in the skins and a little bit in the seeds. So you could actually make a white wine out of a red grape if you could crush it in a way that none of the color came out of the skins.
And in fact, Pinot Grigio is a pink grape. It's not dark red, but it's a red grape. And a lot of champagne is made from Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier. Some is made from Chardonnay, which is white, but Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier are both red grapes, and they're make off. And you see in sparkling wine, you'll see Blanc de Noir written on a label all the time, and that means white from black. That's all it means. And the French call what we call red grapes, they call them black grapes, and it just means white wine from black grapes. So it can be done, and it's just about getting the juice and the skin separated right away.
Yeah, which is interesting because the red grapes are usually either black or blue. They're rarely red.
We call them red grapes. A little red, right, but that's
the wines are red.
Purple.
So then when they're all in the tank.
Happy birthday, Rick's mom! 104.
Oh, Rick's mom! Fantastic.
That's so cool. All right, back to that. Yay, that's awesome. We should have a toaster.
We pull. So if you when you load the tank, if you quickly pull some of the juice out, which is pull is I mean, the wrong word. You actually open the valve, let some of it drain out. Let's say it's 20% of the juice in there. What you end up with is a rosé, basically. It'll have a little bit of color, but not much. And it will have almost no tannin, and it's not had time to absorb much from the skins. And the original reason that people did it is because what you have then left is 80% of the juice, but 100% of the skins and seeds and things. So you get a richer, more concentrated red wine. You get 20% less of it, but it's usually, if the grapes are good, you get a better one.
Yeah.
The question for most is, what do you do with that 20% of juice that you ran out? Most often that's just made into rosé.
Yep.
So
that was what we did with it. That was our plan. Way back in 2006, we decided we were going to make rosé. We are big rosé lovers. We are rosé fans and have been for a long time. Just like dry kind of French style rosés are our go-to drink in the summer, even though we don't have made any long time. So in 2006, we decided we were going to make rosé. We were also trying to make kind of the best, most interesting, most concentrated red wines we could make. So we let our grapes get very ripe and picked them at the right time, as far as we could figure, for red wine making, which meant that they had a lot of flavor, a lot of complexity, a lot of interest, but they did not have a lot of acid left. So when we went through this process of bleeding and pulling them off, the portion that we had saved to make rosé, we fermented it as you would ferment a rosé. So what you do when you do this bleeding process, the red wine, the juice that's left with the skins stays on the skins. It goes through the whole red wine fermentation process. The part that you've pulled off, which has a very light pink color, because it inevitably, unless you use a champagne press, it has gotten a little bit of exposure to the skins. That you treat as a white wine. So you ferment it at a colder temperature. You let it take a longer, slower fermentation. You give it a lot less air. You just do the kinds of things that you would do making a white wine versus a red wine. And that's how you're going to make a rosé. What we found was, once we had made it, it was tasty. It had a lot of flavor, but it was like a little flat. It just didn't have a lot of kick. So to me, and I think to a lot of people who are rosé fans, the joy in a rosé is just like the brightness, the freshness, and it's really acidity. So because we had picked these wines at kind of a red wine ripeness level, the acidity that we wanted wasn't there. So you can add acidity back. You can put in, it's usually tartaric acid that people put back in, which we did, but when we did on the bench trials, we tried it. But the amount of tartaric acid you have to put in, you really kind of taste like the wine and then the acidity, and they don't come together very well. We did play with all kinds of things, including a bunch of our lab chemicals, and the one that worked the best was sulfuric acid. Like, if you put a little sulfuric acid, it actually tasted great, and it was a beautiful color, but like, it was not really legal. So we didn't think that would be a good idea. So rather than push the envelopes of chemistry, I don't think it would kill you, but we weren't quite sure. So rather than go down that road, which would have been a bad idea, we just basically said, all right, we just failed. We were like, it just didn't work. We didn't like it. But we didn't want to just throw it away. So we started trying to play with it. And this is where one of the many times that I think, like, the genius of Lucien, he's very careful, and he's very thoughtful, and he's very willing to play with things and try to see if you can kind of make something good out of something that you're not happy with. So we started playing with it, and we started mixing it with other wine that we had made that had gone through the regular fermentation process. So it wasn't really rosé, so it was a blend. And we ended up putting together a blend at that point. I think, did it have white wine in it, the first Passeggiata?
No.
I don't think it did.
No.
I think it was just this rosé wine and then some kind of regular red wine. And once we put it all together, we really liked what we had. And it was not a big tannic structure, kind of Rolling Hills or Crumbling Rock or Slate style wine. It was a much lighter wine, but it was very smooth, is very flavorful, and it was very kind of approachable. So to us, it was kind of like halfway between a rosé and a red wine, and it kind of served that purpose. And I mean, we felt like it was something, we hadn't really had anything much like it before. So we loved it, and we figured we just put it in a bottle and see if anybody else liked it, you know. And we called it Passeggiata because, I mean, the story's on the label, but basically, you know, in our minds, because it doesn't have that kind of big, robust red wine profile, it's just kind of a wine to just like, something is, oh, maybe it's something. My computer might be, oh, it's just not, okay. I was like, my computer's, I don't think it's trying to update. It's okay. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, so the Passeggiata, I mean, the idea of a Passeggiata is, you know, the Italians have this tradition, and I think a lot of places do, but where, you know, in the evening, when it's like a nice evening, people will just go through a walk and they'll take a stroll and they'll go to the bar and get a glass of wine or have a gelato or stop for a coffee and just chat with neighbors. And, you know, and that walk is called the Passeggiata. And it really just means take a walk, you know. But and my brother-in-law lived in Italy for a long time. And so he kind of came home with that word and that idea. And so for us still, if we take a walk after dinner with our kids and just like walk around the block, we call it a Passeggiata. It's just like, and to me, it's just like a very kind of nice, relaxing time of day. Your work is done, your dinner's done, your dishes may or may not be done, but whatever. You know, you're kind of done with your day. You don't have to think anymore. You can just kind of relax. And that's what Passeggiata is. And so in our minds, that's the idea of this wine. Like, don't think too much about it. Don't worry too much about it. It should be just nice and relaxing. So,
yeah. And so the idea for for this wine is, and part of it back then was, we also, when we first started, we said, you know, we're going to make dry wines, but everything we heard is that everything in Maryland, all the customers, you know, talk dry but drink sweet. So we said, well, we don't have a sweet wine, but maybe we can make a wine with much lower tannin content, which is much less aggressive, I guess, maybe is a good word for a red wine. And that people who come in and are looking for a sweet wine, maybe what they really what they want is not such an aggressive red wine. Yeah. And so that was sort of our hope for Passeggiata, is it would expand our market a little bit. I think in retrospect that was wrong. I don't think we've convinced very many people of that. But what we have is our most of our customers, our regular customers that love our other wines, also seem to love Passeggiata.
I would say it's about half and half. I would say of the customers that come in and say either I'm strictly a white wine drinker, I don't like reds, I will say that's fine, but just try this one, just try it. And many, I would say half. I mean, not ever. Some of them still hate it, but a lot of people who like whites and not reds, the reason they don't like reds is because of the tannin. They don't like that puckeriness and that tannin, but they're willing to have a wider flavor profile than you're going to get from a strict white wine. So I would say maybe half the people who try it, who are dedicated white wine drinkers, end up liking the Passeggiata. And then I would say of the people who come in and say, I'm totally a sweet wine drinker, sometimes I'll try to ask them some questions to say, why, what is it you like about sweet wines? But maybe 40%. I mean, more than would like, you know, the people who would taste the Crumbling Rock and just be like, oh, this is terrible, you know, because it's exactly what they don't like about wine. Some of them like the Passeggiata, and I think it's because of that, is because it doesn't have the whole tannin, that kind of strong tannin going on. So it is funny though. So the first year we made it, we had actually the rosé that we had tried to make, we'd put in barrels. I think we'd even fermented it in barrels. So often rosés are fermented in barrel because when you ferment them in barrel, you get kind of, if you use very old neutral barrels, you get some kind of richness and interest from the barrel, but not any barrel flavors or tannins. So the first time we made Passeggiata, we had this wine that had sat in barrels for a year and a half. And we blended it together, and it was just it just kind of came together, and it was, I don't want to say it was easy to make because it was this whole kind of history of getting there, but it came together. It was great. And then we had no idea if anyone would like it, but we just figured we'd try it and see what happened with it. And then the next year, or it was 2 years later by the time we were trying to make it again, we were like, how do we even do that? Because we hadn't made the rosé again, and we had done it differently. We realized it felt, so it became, and it really is still, I feel like it is the hardest wine for us to make. And it seems silly to me, and to me it's like, well, it's the wine that we want you as a drinker to think the least about, but for us to get it where we want it, it is one of the most challenging wines. And the reason that is that to find the right amount of kind of interest and complexity and length and heft, so that it's a very appealing wine. It's not just simple, but to not get any tannin or no significant amount of tannin, like to find that balance is a lot trickier than with a lot of wines. So when we're blending a slate or a crumbling rock, like to get a whole bunch of flavor in, we want a lot of tannin to balance that. It's kind of easy. You take a bunch of really good stuff, you throw it together, it makes the wine. To make those grapes and make that wine in the first place is hard, but the blending, it's like a little more obvious kind of how to go about it. And I will say often when Lucien, our consultant, comes, we generally spend 3 days blending, usually. Almost a whole day, if not, 2/3 to a whole day ends up being Passeggiata, because it's like a little more of this and a little more of that, and then we'll go back and then we'll come back to it. It's just much more complicated. The other thing I want to say about our very first Passeggiata is, and I think one of the things that people loved about it was it had a very distinctive kind of vanilla and butterscotch component. We do not usually, when we talk about our wine, we don't usually get too crazy about tasting notes or what are the flavors you're getting. We don't even think a lot about flavors when we're blending. We're much more interested in length and consistency and mouthfeel and kind of how you experience the wine rather than what you taste or smell. But there was something about that. It had this very, very noticeable kind of butterscotch and then vanilla flavor. And a lot of people who were new to wine or had drunk a lot of wine, but spent hours with people being like, I have no idea what they're talking about like, levels of kumquat or like all these weird wine terms. I would say, can you get butterscotch? And they'd be like, oh my God, I get it. Like you could find it. And it was like, I think that people like that because they could like connect to a geeky wine thing in a way that so often people are describing wine and like, if you just may not understand what they're talking about. And so many of the words we use about wine are like black currants or red currants. Like, who knows what a black currant tastes like? I mean, if you're into it, you may have learned, but for sort of normal people, I think it was kind of approachable, which I think is nice. Anyway, so I remember that a lot about it.
It was very nice. If there's a secret to Passeggiata, I think it is it's sort of the size of our Syrah crop. Syrah, the more Syrah we have, the better our Passeggiata. So different grapes have different personalities, and Cabernet. Let's take Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah. They're the opposites on this scale, which is Syrah. The juice of Syrah, if you just came in and squeezed it and didn't let it sit with the skins at all, that juice is really good. It's wonderful. It has great flavor. It has great fruit. It has great mouthfeel. Everything about it. Cabernet Sauvignon, the juice is kind of It's really not great.
Juice.
If any of you are big rosé drinkers, if you ever have a rosé of Cabernet Sauvignon, rarely are they very good. It just doesn't make very good rosé, and Cabernet Franc is close, not very great either. Merlot is much better. Petit Verdot makes some nice rosé. Malbec, excellent. But Syrah is the best. The bleed. So if we have a big Syrah crop and we can bleed that, and that goes into the Passeggiata, that is the base. We get as much of that in there as we can, and it really makes the wine better. Same with the rosé. When we make a rosé, the more Syrah that goes in, the better the rosé.
And we do pretty much every year try to make rosé. Some years we get them, and some years we don't. It really depends on if we have enough Syrah to be able to kind of sacrifice some to make rosé.
So it's been frustrating the last bunch of years when we've had this this worldwide virus or whatever it is. I don't know if it's a virus in the
Syrah. Virus, a Syrah virus, not the virus, capital T.
Yeah,
just point. A little grape virus, much smaller.
But we've been having to replant all Syrah, and so we're getting much less than we got the first few years of Syrah crop. But the 2019, on the other hand, has some nice dollop of Syrah in it, but not as much as we would like. But I think like all the 2019s are going to be just a great year and a really nice wine. We've part of Sarah talking about how hard it is to blend Passeggiata is that the first one we made was so good. We have been trying to do that again every year, and we've come close. But I still think the first one we made was the best one we ever made. And so possibly this one, this 2019,
similar, yeah.
This is going to be really, really good. And
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
really happy with it. And it's a testament to the vintage. I think it was also maybe the easiest Passeggiata blend we ever had because everything we had available to make it was great. And we put it together and it was great. And so we didn't need to do a whole lot, which was good.
That helps. Yep, makes it easy. So we have, I'm going to start going through a couple questions. Oh, first of all, one more background thing. So the vintages, et cetera, with Passeggiata, it's very confusing. So, and I just, yeah. So the order of creation of Passeggiata, we had 2006, and then we had a 2008, and then we had one that we just called Passeggiata, which we're going to try, maybe. And then we had a 10 and 11, and then we had another one that was a blend of years. And so the reason we did call the one back there that I just mentioned, we just called it Passeggiata was because it was a blend of years. We hadn't thought of numbering them. Then 2 years went by, we made 2 vintages. Then we had another, it was a blend of 11 and 12, I think. And so we were like, well, it's been a while, we'll just call it Passeggiata. We did not in our minds have any idea of like a library or verticals or saving it. It just, you know, we renew it. It just didn't occur to us that people would be hanging on to it. So like we have a bottle here that we're gonna try. It's called Passeggiata. It does not have a vintage date on it. Cover the, not that, the light. Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
But there it is, just plain. If you have that in your cellar, it might have been bottled in 2010, or it might have been bottled in 2013. We don't even know. I think the barcodes are different. Like, I think if I really dig, I could tell you which it is, but like, so I'm sorry. And then after that, we did numbers for a while. We did. So the first Roman numeral one is 7 because we had already done 6. So there's no 1 through 6 in Roman numerals. It just starts with 7. And then we did that through 11. And then we went back to vintages. And then next year, it's probably going to be a blend again. We might go back to numbers. Anyway, I got nothing. I'm just sorry. It's really confusing. We have a list. Here's the list. I had to write it down and type it out because like it's so confusing. So just drink it and don't worry too much about it. We're going to taste the old one and see what it's doing.
Just quickly too, we've gone back and forth with numbers and vintages because again, it has to be 85% from the vintage to put the vintage number on. And some years we use older juice, older wine and mixed with younger wine. So we can't put a number on, but then we say in some years, like in 2019, it's 100% 2019. So we said, well, let's put the date on it. Yeah, we can't seem to make a permanent decision on this one. Sorry about that.
I know. It's just so confusing. Anyway, so I had another question, which was about the corks. Here's the new corks. These are our third, I don't know if we already talked about them, but this is our third attempt at a cork brand. These are DM, which is, you can kind of see. So all the wines this year, we went back to this. This is, so we used normal corks, normal, natural, straight out of the tree originally. And then we went to these sugarcane corks for the last few years. They were great for some reasons. They're hard to get in and out of the bottle was one of our criticisms of them. So anyway, now we're trying this, which is this is probably the fanciest kind of cork that we've used. It's actually an amalgamation, but they're all taken apart. They're supposed to have anything that could have this like cork taint, TCA, taken out of them, and then they're reassembled. So you'll see our new corks are kind of speckled. And then you can kind of dial in the length of ageability. Here you go. This is DM10, if you look really careful. Oh, it's probably backwards, right? Because of the, whatever, 10, which means it's like that's their biggest one.
10 is for you can now, they're making these corks, these closures, I guess they are. It's made out of cork and it's got a beeswax binder or something in it. And they now put them back together in a way that you can actually control the amount of oxygen that goes into the bottle. So they make them all exactly the same, which natural cork is always, each cork is different. So you get bottle variation over years. You get wine 15 years old or something. Each bottle will be different because the cork's different. These are all exactly the same, and you can order these are the 10, which is the low oxygen transmission. There's, I think, a 20, which is more oxygen transmission. Right. You can decide how much you want to get through the cork, supposedly. We'll see. And yeah.
So we'll see what we think of that. That's the third attempt at corks. We'll see.
That's great. So, so the question when we're doing blending experiments with Lucienne, who has the final say?
It just depends.
We
don't really
disagree,
have a final say. We come to a consult very earthy and lovely.
It's, yes, right. It's kumbaya.
I don't know. We always we eventually come to a conclusion that we agree with. It's never been, I can't think of any time that we've just been like, fine, you can have it. I'm not, or I quit. I'm not going to do it. I don't know. We usually come to some conclusion.
I'm tired, whatever.
Sometimes there might be that, like, that was good. I mean, we have we've made a few choices that are quite different, and then we start kind of moving to the middle. And sometimes I'll like one better, and I'll like one better, and be like, well, what's the one in the middle of that? Or, then Melissa will like that one, and so we'll go with it. Or something. We'll come up with something. But there is no kind of official somebody who gets the final word. We have to all like it. And I think if there's ever one that there's a real outlier, then we think people aren't going to like it. There's something wrong with us, even if a couple of us like it. So we'll play with it until everybody's happy.
Yeah.
So I guess that's as much, marketing we do as them. Yeah.
Richard, I love that most reds increase my blood pressure, but Passeggiata does not.
Good
Hey,
for you.
Can we market that? That sounds, wow. Yeah, that's great. Okay, before we forget, because we always do, let's pour some of this.
Oh yeah, this is the old one. So I don't, see what it's doing as it's old. Okay, this is kind of, I'm going to do my little exercise.
Sarah's got white pants on. There you go.
So we're going to try to hold it up just so you can sort of see put it by the closer. So you can kind of see when we're talking about aging and stuff. I don't know how well you can see ours, but see, it's getting a little bit brown around the edge. It's better when you're moving it. So I don't know, make everybody queasy, but so but it's not super brown yet. This is the one that's probably 10 years old, 8 years old, something like that.
It's hard to tell the difference between that and the 19 by color. Well,
yeah, the aromas are definitely different. Yeah,
I think that's the 9-10 one. Tasting it, I'm not sure. That'd be my guess. So while we're tasting this, what we've always heard about aging of wines is that tannin and acidity rule. That the more acid in the wine and the more tannin in the wine, the longer the fruit will last. So we've always thought that Passeggiata, it has low acid like most red wines and almost no tannin in it. It should not age well. This wine is better than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm giving up like that. I don't know. Next time
it's
somebody
got a lot of acidity though. It has a lot of acidity.
But no more than the reds.
Rosé-ish.
Yeah. I don't know. Next time you ask me how well wine is going to age, I'm just going to say I don't know, because I would have thought this would only last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's still nice. I think it's it tastes like kind of like an old Pinot a little bit to me. Like it's got that like cigar boxy thing kind of going on. It's very smooth. Not that it was ever not, but
it has great fruit in it. It's
really good.
That fruit reminds me of 10. So I think there's some 10 in there, 2010. But
yeah.
Anyway, really nice wine. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of excited. I have no idea. I don't think do we have any old Passeggiatas left, Melissa? She's nodding her head. Yes. I think there are a few down there. We don't even have, like, I went in to look for some older ones to taste. We don't have any even in our library that I could find of all of them. But there you go. If it lasts 5 years, you're not a wine drinker. True. That's why we keep it for you under lock and key. That's why I don't let anybody into the library.
That is a really good point. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. True.
So,
anyway.
So one of the other questions we get is sometimes what is similar to Passeggiata? What's a wine style that this is like? And the answer is I don't know. We don't know of any other wine made like this in the world. I know there are people in France who use the same techniques we're using, the whole washing of the caps, which we didn't really talk about, but we should to make it. But they then blend it with something else. Lucienne makes a wine that's imagine half Passeggiata and half press wine. We've talked about press wine that we put in Slade and often much stronger to make a kind of middle wine, which does not label Margaux, can't label that, but makes it. I think it's Haut Medoc or something that he sells that wine under. So he doesn't make a wine like this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it is reminiscent of like a lighter style Pinot. I think sometimes where it has that, you don't have a lot of tannin, you have kind of the fruitiness. But it's kind of different than almost anything else that
It's really opening up.
um
Nice.
yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to say other styles that are like that. You just have to drink the Passeggiata. There it is. We made a lot this year. There are 875 cases, I think, right? Something like that. So that's pretty good for us. It's a pretty good year.
So Gary and Lori have 19, but would love more
More
Passeggiata.
10.
10. Mel, do we have any more 10?
I'm sure she has the whole library right on the top of her head. Anyway,
Yeah,
we'll go through. I mean, I would have said, oh, well, it doesn't age, so we'll just pull everything out of the library. But now we have this old one, and maybe we'll hang on to a little bit of it. But we do not have a whole lot, but I think there will be a little bit. The 2018 Passeggiata, there's a question. Of the 2018s, the Passeggiata was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it has the same kind of weight as this one. I think it was a little more basic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I liked it. A good wine, but real struggle to make it. Whereas 19 is fabulous and really easy to make. That's the farming world. It seems like some years nature gives you a really easy job, and some years nature makes it hard on us. So, which is great.
Good, yeah.
And let's see so we've had
vintage, but
we've had a long run of Passeggiatas and make it. So the other question we get is, why don't you make rosé?
We're trying.
And so I guess the first is, it is our intention in 2020 to make a rosé. So I'm hoping for those rosé fans like me out there that we'll make a bunch of rosé this year. But what happens when we don't have a block of vines that is dedicated to rosé? We've talked about maybe doing it at Live Edge, but at Black Ankle we don't. So our rosés that we make are Sauniers. They're bleeds from our red wines, and that means that's the same juice that we use to make Passeggiata. So we have a 1-to-1. If we make more rosé, we make less Passeggiata, and vice versa. 2019, I think we have enough red grapes from our new blocks coming in and things that we're pretty sure we can make a rosé this year. It's always a question of which do we. Yeah.
We don't have any 2019.
Yeah, sorry, 2020.
Whoops. I'm like, wait, what? Oh no, he just did the wrong year.
Whoops.
So
yes, we're hopeful. The question: how does 2020 look from a growing perspective?
It's too early to tell.
I mean, okay, it's so far perfect.
Right.
But
it's only May.
We're at the point of the year where things can only go wrong. They can't really go right.
Can have gone wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
so this is like, we could tell you if it was bad, but we can't yet tell you if it's good. That's what he means.
Yeah,
things can go right. They can't only go wrong now. They could still go right. So for us with wine growing, it is very weird. The first 80% of the year determines usually 10% of the quality of the vintage. I mean, it matters, and it basically can only be bad news. I mean, it's kind of silly. So, and so far we've had a great mix of sun and rain. We like some rain early on because it just gets the groundwater going, and it's fine this time of year. Plus, I have a suspicion that if you have it early, you can't have it late, even though I know there's no scientific basis for it. It kind of works for my superstitious nature. So I don't mind a little spring rain. And we've dodged, there have been about 6 serious frost scares, and we have dodged every one of them. So it is after May 23rd, which is the official last date that we're supposed to have frost in Maryland. So, you never know, but so far it's looking good. So those are two huge things that have been good. So right now, if you go through, every leaf is beautiful. The vines are all the same size. They look great. May, June, July, it's really all just like an elaborate setup for the fall. And the real clincher is what happens in the fall. So we really care what happens starting by fall. I mean, kind of middle of August through middle of October usually. So we, at that point is when it makes the biggest difference. So
This is saying the wine is the summer makes the quantity, and the autumn makes the quality, and that's sort of where we are. That we have a lot of fruit out there. It looks great. We're blessed that we missed those frosts. Many of our good friends in Virginia, in the south of Virginia, Charlottesville area, they were just way ahead of our growth when those frosts hit, and they really got hit hard, and it's going to be a rough year for them. So, but missed us, yay.
Yeah, we're very lucky. So, so I have one question, which is, what is your favorite thing about Passeggiata? So, and that to me, the thing I like the best about Passeggiata is, first of all, you don't have to think too much about it. So it's good for when you want to relax. And it's just very versatile. It pairs with lots of things. It's very easy. It appeals to a lot of people. So that's nice. Like a lot of people like it. You're serious wine people and you're less serious wine people and whatever. I feel like it's kind of appeals to a broad audience, but also it's a really nice food wine. It's just easy. It goes with a lot of foods. It can take some spicy foods. You can chill it a little bit, not freezing cold, but on a hot day, you can cool it a little bit and it'll still be quite flavorful and good. So I just feel like it covers a lot of bases. So that is my favorite thing. What is your favorite thing about Passeggiata? Do you have one?
Drinking it.
Drinking
That just
it. There you
count.
go.
Simple as that. Yeah, and it's just nice. It goes with, Sarah said, doesn't matter. You don't have to think about what you're having with pizza or
Yeah, you can make a nice
steak.
meal and pair with
nice,
it. You can have duck with it or cassoulet or pizza. Like it's kind of nice.
It works for everything.
It's kind of nice.
There was a question, we mentioned rosé. There's a question about, is there any Bedlam rosé in the future?
Oh,
Interesting, yes.
Right.
So the original Bedlam rosé was made with, we had a tank of
so
Bedlam.
I'm going to tell the story because to me, it was like so dramatic. So, because you weren't here. So Bedlam rosé, 2011. So you've heard me complain about 2018 and all the rain. 2011 was very different in that it was kind of a lovely summer. And then it started raining on like August 20th or something, right? And it rained every single day for the next like 6 weeks. It just was crazy. And so, we do need some rain. Rain is not totally the enemy, but we do not want rain in the fall. And it just, it can cause rot problems. It makes us need to pick the fruit earlier. It just causes all kinds of problems. And one of the things it does is it just makes the grapes bigger. It just bulks them up. So in 2011, we had this crazy season. We usually take about 6 or 7 weeks to pick. We picked our entire harvest in 3 weeks. And it was twice as big as basically any harvest we'd ever had. And a lot of it was water that we then had to bleed and deal with. But like, it was just kind of mayhem in the winery. And we had only been doing this for like 4 years. We didn't know what we were doing, So, right, 11, yeah. So it was all kind of crazy. So I was home one day with the kids. Ed was at the farm. And I got a call from Avincio, who's our vineyard manager, who's worked with us from day one. He's fantastic. He's like the cornerstone of the whole operation.
And the whole crew, we've been working 16-hour days,
yes,
7 days
everybody
a week.
Had been working like crazy.
This harvest done in 3 or 4 weeks that usually takes 6 or 8 weeks.
Right. But I get this call and it's all in Spanish and my Spanish is okay, but it's like, not that good, And he's like, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm on the phone. I remember so clearly sitting on my front step and him saying like, I made a mistake, but I hope it's okay. I worked for you for so long. I've never made a mistake like this before. And I'm just like, who's dead? What happened? I mean, I'm terrified. I'm just like, what's going on? What's going on? It's okay. What? Cut to the chase. But I don't know how to say cut to the chase, And he's clearly very upset. And I'm like, and then he tells me, and what happened was he said, I was bleeding. We had a tank of Bedlam. I was bleeding the Merlot, and I connected it to the Bedlam tank. And I was like, okay, that's it? Like, where's the punchline? Who drowned afterwards or fell off the ladder? Anyway, so after that lead up, and we thought at the time, I was like, it's okay. We've ruined a few hundred cases of wine. Like, I'm sorry, that's a real bummer, but like, it's all right. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's injured. There's nothing there's no blood, no broken bones. We're fine. So we kind of just ignored it after that. We let it ferment. We took care of it. We figured it was kind of a loss, but then we got to the blending table and we, after that, we got to the blending table and we tasted it and we were like, hey, this actually tastes pretty good. It's kind of a joke that you make rosé by mixing white wine and red wine. Like that's not really how you make it usually, but like, why not? So anyway, that was Bedlam Rosé. And after the lead up, when I thought, Ed had died or the crew had been killed or something terrible had happened, like a little red and my little peanut butter and my chocolate was fine. So we thought it was a good invention. And then we just were like, well, we'll sell it this year. It'll be our silly wine and that'll be the end of it. But it was different than a regular rosé because it was Bedlam. It had kind of like a different, I don't know, I would say like a little more phenolic, like a little more richness to
more
it.
Richness, more mouthfeel, more. It was bigger and bolder.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
less.
Anyway.
It was great. I thought
Yeah.
that-
So anyway, so we have made it once since then, I think. Only.
we made
Maybe
it once. We're gonna try one of these years to make it again.
we'll
It's
try
hard
again.
because we made it by accident, so we're
Right.
not sure what we did.
We know. Yeah.
I know it had 12% Merlot bleed in it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, and it was fermented. Well, we made it the other time. We blended it afterwards. We didn't do it on the spot. And again, it's partly a trade-off. So it's if we make Bedlam Rosé, we make less Bedlam, and we make less something else, probably Passeggiata. So it's a little bit so it's a little bit in how much the harvest gives us. If we have a big enough harvest, then we can start to make these a little more, I don't know, small wines, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, it all worked out. But that's probably my most scary moment. I just remember, because he was like, and then this, and then this. What happened? What happened? What happened? He felt terrible. I mean, it was an innocent mistake. It just, these things happen. But he forgot to look at the tag. He forgot to look at the tag. It happens anyway.
I felt bad. I noticed that they were pumping this wine in, and I said, Vincio, is that the right tank? And he said, oh no, and he went over and shut the valve. And then I was over there trying to take a sample and see how much had gotten in, and then I looked around and he was gone.
Yeah,
he just walked away. I didn't know where he went. But we were busy doing 1,000 other things. I was like looking at the wine, trying to figure out how much color was in it and how much maybe we got in. Could we get it back to being
better? Could we go back? Right.
Poor Vincio, but it was fabulous, and he's still with us and still fabulous.
Yes, exactly. Oh, it's forgiven. In fact, afterwards, he was so happy because we're like, no, he loves it. It's great. You invented something. It's okay. We're not that bad. Anyway, so
that's great. We had a question of when are we going to open outside? Do we know anymore? We don't. We're hoping it's soon.
Yeah. The latest conversation that we've had with the Wineries Association is working like crazy, trying to figure out the right plan, and working with the Department of Commerce and the governor's office, and we are taking their guidance. The governor specifically said that he was hesitant to open outdoor spaces we were kind of linked in with bars and restaurants. He said, I don't want to do it before Memorial Day because I just feel like everyone has this idea of a big party for Memorial Day, and I'm worried it's going to be too much. So he didn't say, therefore, I'm going to open next weekend, but he specifically said, I'm going to wait till after the weekend. So we could read that into it, what you want. I don't know. There is a lot of thought that we have a lot of outdoor space. We should be able to use it, but he just wants to be cautious, and we're with them on that. We want to be cautious too. So that's as much, I guess, more than I might know than is out there as far as public information. It's public information, but I don't know a whole lot about it. We will, when we do open, we'll send you long emails with the details, but we're going to do all reservations. We're only going to do bottle service. We won't be able to have tastings. We'll be able to do flights. We'll be able to do, in some ways it'll be fun for us. We'll be able to do kind of custom experiences. We'll get a reservation for you. We can figure out what you want. We can have your cheese and bread or whatever you want ready. I think we'll be able to do all of that. But it'll have to be much more kind of structured, and we're going to make sure we have our spacing and our table set and all that.
We are working on you being able to order from your cell phone.
Yeah.
So that we can bring it out to you. So there'd be a touchless system of things. We're going to try to. It'd be nice, actually. There's some things that we probably this has forced us to do, or given us the opportunity to do, which will be nice. So.
We do not have customized BAV fabric yet, but that's a cool idea. You want to make the mask of it? We could probably figure it out. It would be kind of fun. Our neighbor who did the crab cake dinners, his wife, the guy one of the guys who owns Nick's lives near us. And his wife came by, and she did have a branded they own Starboard too. I was like, oh, you have your Starboard mask. That never occurred to me to have swag as masks, but this is the modern world. We're gonna have to move into it. Oh, when will Live Edge be open? 2024, 2025.
Not 2024.
I think 2025. It's going to be a few more years. We have our goal originally. Well, we've had lots of goals. We were hoping to be kind of going in 24. We have pushed off our planting for next year, basically partly because of this whole virus. We've just been way slowed down. So we're just nervous we have to order a ton of vines now to be able to plant next year. And so we weren't quite ready to take that jump. So It looks like 25 is good if all goes well. We'll see. We will get there. We are still working on it. We have 20 some acres in. It looked great. The whole trellis is almost built. Like we're getting there. We're going to take good care of it, but it probably will be another year. It's probably going to be delayed a year because of this. So we'll see. You know, grape growing, it's just a slow process. We should never have told anybody we bought it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take forever. But we'll get there. We will get there. And I remember forever in the Black Ankle starting that just thinking like, this cannot be possible. It is not possible that we will ever get open because it was like 10 years. It just felt like forever. But here we are now, even open more than 10 years. So it will happen. Oh, I see people sporting their masks. I'm going to have to look through the video. People are showing off their swaggy masks. Well, if somebody wants to come up with a swaggy Black Ankle mask, let us know. I'd love to see it.
Boots in there.
Yeah, you can have boots. I don't know anyway, but.
And I hope if we're doing pickup again this weekend, for those of you who come by, you might get to see the first few shade sails up.
Yes.
We're open. We're getting close on the patio. We're getting more gravel this week, and maybe we can start some of the final finishes, which would be great.
Right. Yeah. No, we're making progress on that. So yeah, a few people have came in the beginning and then came back a few weeks later, or come a lot, and then you can see how much progress. It looks great this week. I mean, it really is starting to see. You're starting to be able to see what it's going to be coming into. So. That is exciting for us. Yes, there is a rumor. You're so funny, from Melissa. Did I hear you painted Sauvignon Blanc? Yes, you're right.
From Melissa.
That's such a plug. Yes, we painted Sauvignon Blanc. Hey, I have something you should talk about. We did plant Sauvignon Blanc at Live Edge, so that's an exciting news, and a little bit of Tempranillo. Tempranillo. So a little tiny bit of Tempranillo, but a fair amount of Sauvignon Blanc. We're counting on that one being good. So we will see. So that is good. The other, so we have a poll. Should we put Merlot or Syrah in? We have these 5 acres.
Oh,
all right. You can tell us. What would you rather have more of? Merlot or, well, we're going to decide. Let's see. So other questions. So next week's happy hour. So next week, still curbside pickups 1 to 4. We don't have any dinners or anything next week. We're working on some ideas. We hope maybe Father's Day weekend we can do something. We're going to try to figure all that out. Still in process for what that will be. So curbside, ideally with a viewing of shade sales. The pressure is on to get the shade sales up. We'll get it done. Get it done. Next week, we're going to talk about sustainability. So it's something that we are pretty dedicated to, or feel very, very strongly about, I guess, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about it, and kind of in our growing, that we try to be very kind of sustainable in our growing. It really comes originally from a wine quality standpoint, but it kind of just jives with whatever, how we like to be in the world if possible. So we have lots of topics we could talk to about that. I think next week we're going to we'll probably start talking about soil, which is more interesting than you think. Dirt. Trust me, dirt is cool. We're going to talk about dirt next week, and you can drink anything you want, anyone you want. Not that you couldn't drink any wine you want now, because we're watching.
Sarah's allowing you to drink whatever you like next year.
Whatever you want. If people have suggested wines that they want to try, we haven't decided what we're going to open either. So we're happy that if somebody has something they're interested in talking about, just send a note to info or put it in the comments or whatever, and we'll try to figure that out. Oh, and Greg, I see your note on flowers. I think that would be a great idea. So we'll try to do that again too. I'll put a man on that. I'll put a woman on that. We'll get that. We'll get back to our farms, because I love those. And mine lasted for like 2 weeks for bleachers. Melissa's pointing to the Zoe Square. Hey, Zoe, up there. She's on it. So we'll get that done. I think that is all that we have. We're like ahead of anybody. Any other questions out there? I'm just trying to see the red wine picnic bundle. You liked it? Oh, good. Awesome. Great. Yeah, we're still doing the bundles. So those are kind of fun. And those you can just get on our website and see what they are, but it's just a mix of some of our cheeses and breads, and then whichever one of the wines. We have a red wine and a white wine one, where we've kind of put together what we think would be a fun pairing. So those are available for pickup when we open. We can have them on site. We think, we'll see. We're watching all those rules like crazy. So. And one last question from Sharon and Ed. When will the sparkling wine be released? Oh. All I'll have to say is Melissa is taking bribes. Melissa at blackankle.com. Right, exactly. And yeah. Right. I don't know. We're gonna have to taste it. Maybe we'll do a sparkling. Maybe after sustainability, we'll talk sparkling wine and then we'll taste it. We haven't tasted it in a while, so it could be right. There's just like only a tiny bit of it, so it makes me feel like we can never release it.
I think we made 900 bottles.
I know. I did say that we were going to release it when officially once the pandemic was over, but it sounds like we're going to have to release it before that because I don't think there's going to be like a day that we're like, it's all done, we're fixed, yay! So we'll have to figure it out. Oh, are we going to make costecha again? Probably.
Wow.
How's that for an answer? So we should have made 1,000 bottles, 900 bottles. Yeah. So okay. So costecha. I'm just being silly by just saying probably. Sorry. So when we do the blending, always we have all the kind of old wines in our minds. Our cornerstone wines tend to be the Rolling Hills and the Crumbling Rock, the Slates, the Feldspars. But costecha is definitely on the list. So if we have that wine was kind of heavily Cabernet Franc. It kind of the first couple times that we made it. Oh, here's Danny's gonna come photobomb. And so if we have another year where we feel like we can pull it off, I think we will. So it's definitely on the list of things you want to try. You want to say hi to Grandma? Your grandma's watching. You can't tell where she is because she doesn't have her video on. Say hi. Just wait. She's there. Anyway, I think other people are saying hi to you too. Anyway, you don't have to just be Grandma. I know, because she doesn't have her video on. Yeah, there are multiple pages. I don't know how to look through all the pages. Anyway, we'll figure that out later. And then there was another question. Oh, the 900 bottles was the chispa, right? Don't we have 900 bottles of chispa? Yeah. Or am I dreaming? I think that's right. No, she's shaking her. Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm not dreaming. There's a delay.
Unless you remind us we have a 2017 person.
Oh, we have one. We just haven't released it. Yeah, we'll make costecha for you. Yeah, we'll just get that right done. Any other requests for wines we've already made? Just let us know. I forgot we have that still tucked away. Oh yeah, maybe it's time to bring that out. Someone was just asking me what is our next release going to be, but we will see.
I think our brand.
There, Grandma says hi, Denny.
Looking good.
Anyway, so I feel like there was one other question that somebody just sent, and then I just spaced on it. Oh, it's in my text. Hold on. Oh, virtual tastings. Right. Okay. It's not a question. It's a prompt. So if you have not yet tried a virtual tasting and are interested, it's just one of the things that we're doing starting while we're on quarantine, but I think we'll probably keep them up, which is you can just come up with your own private tasting. It's kind of like this, only you get to decide. What here. Okay, so there's a shout out here. Larry saying thank you to Rick for Larry and Vicky saying thank you to Rick for doing it. So maybe I should unmute Rick and you can describe it. I'll describe it. So we have one of our tasting room folks do a Zoom with you like this. You pick whatever wines you want. You can open a bunch of wines. You can just open one wine and talk about other wines, and we just design it around whatever you're interested in. So they usually run about an hour, although we're flexible, and we just scheduled ahead. And it's just a chance to kind of, another chance to think about wine and talk about wine. And you can invite, we can set up a Zoom for you and as many friends as you want. So we have some folks who've gotten wines with neighbors or who have even shipped wines to family that live far away. So like they can be, their family in Florida can be tasting the same wines as they're tasting here, and we can kind of Zoom you all together. So it's just meant to be kind of a fun way to connect with us and for us to reach out to everybody and talk wine. So that's virtual tastings. Like everything else, they're on our website, or you can email us. We can ship to Florida. Yes, we can ship to Florida, Maryland, DC, Virginia, Massachusetts, Florida, Texas. If not yet, then yes, yet. Okay, yes. Now she just typed it on there. Did I miss any? Pennsylvania. I don't think we can ship to Pennsylvania. Yes, Pennsylvania. Sorry, I should know this, but no, you can.
Alaska.
Not Alaska.
We can ship to Alaska.
We can ship to Alaska. All right, for all of you tuning in from Alaska.
California,
of course. I forgot California. Yes, and it really warms my heart to ship to California. There's just a special joy when we send wine to California. Yes, I love it. So anyway, all right. I think that kind of covers us. So we're good. So join us next week to talk about sustainability, talk about dirt. But I won't have to vacuum next week, right? So I always feel like I have to vacuum before these. So, but we're talking about dirt.
Not that kind of dirt. Sorry, different dirt.
Oh well. All right, everybody. Good to see you. Take care. Have a great week. All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. 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 I didn't. I changed